We're home of the Cowboys. We are less now than 1 month away, Reg, from the start of training camp in Oxnard, California. We will be all over it as your home of the Cowboys 105 through the fan when training camp begins. And this is where we get to peak season of let's make that content to make that thing stretch between now and when training camp starts.
Got to put a little water in the jug.
Oh, boy, man. You want to talk about it's funny you say that because I used to do that with growing up as a kid.
Of course you did.
Making spaghetti, you need that little extra bit of spaghetti sauce. Throw a little water in there.
Yeah. Get the whole thing out of the jug. Yeah.
Oh boy, that's where we are right now in the NFL season. Just try to make that thing stretch as far and as wide as we can. And ESPN put this together.
It's a list, y'all.
It's a list. I heard somewhere that people love lists, Chris Arnold, and
everybody put your "I'm being disrespectful" hats on. That's what a list is great for. This is disrespectful.
Nothing gets people more charged up than a top 10 list of this, a top 5 this, a Mount Rushmore of that.
Oh, people love a good Mount Rushmore.
I mean, it's a great way to have,
is it
debate conversation? I think so.
Okay.
Because it makes you really think about, the four people that you would need to have on a particular Mount Rushmore.
Is that a pet peeve of yours when people get into a Mount Rushmore and
they have 5, 6? Like, Mount Rushmore is only 4 of them dudes on that thing, right? But people start making up their own rules when it comes to Mount Rushmore. We don't do that here. But where
honorable mentions in there.
You're right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, like there's a side mountain where you can put the rest of the people at. Where did the Cowboys rank among the 32 best rosters in the National Football League? The answer may surprise you, according to ESPN. Just for the sake of this conversation, who do you think they have as the #1 roster in the National Football League?
I didn't see the list, Kevin.
Oh, sorry. So just spoil the segment, Reg.
What you mean? What you want me to do?
Thanks a lot.
Would you want me to lie? I haven't seen the segment ever.
Thanks a lot.
And I just really love what's happening in the AFC East.
Yeah, thanks for playing
along. With the Buffalo Bills. Like, I'm not sure. I have no idea. I just think that they've got a great quarterback. They went and signed Von Miller. They've really done a great job with the wide receiving core. Didn't they let go of Cole Beasley? They got Emmanuel
I like
Sanders
how you lumped that in with doing a great job with the wide receiver core.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I love that. I don't know what great. You mean.
But the defense has played really well. Yeah, no, I think that the Buffalo Bills probably have the greatest roster in the league right now.
Well, clearly you saw the list, Reg.
What?
Because
how dare you? I'm
the Buffalo Bills, because
appalled.
Nobody circles the wagons quite like the Buffalo Bills. Pro Football Focus grades of 90 plus categorized as elite. 80 to 89.9 are good to high quality. 70 to 79.9. Check-in as average, meanwhile 69.9 or lower are considered below average.
Also, can we do the thing, because I feel like anytime anyone mentions Pro Football Focus, you have to talk about the fact that if you will subscribe to what they're doing. And one of the more controversial things that Pro Football Focus does is these grades, right? Pro Football Focus is great about some other stats and things of those nature. The grades are very subjective, and it doesn't feel like they're consistent all the way around at times. So that's why I think a lot of people kind of scoff at the grades at times. And so that's some of what we're talking about here. When we start talking about these rosters, is that some of these grades aren't necessarily one-to-one across the league. Heck, there's going to be, when you have something subjective and you have multiple people doing the grades, people aren't going to grade exactly the same unless there's a very, very, very strict rubric. And I'm not sure if what's happening there, if you're just getting individuals having slightly different feelings on grading. But yeah, I wanted to give that caution before we get too deep in this. And some wiggle room. Yeah, because wiggle room's always good.
One of the things about PFF that people tend to not necessarily get down with is the way that they go about actually assigning these grades and the methodology that they use to get to said scores and numbers. Sometimes
we'll have to talk to our friend John Owning, who's at Pro Football Focus, have him defend himself.
John's actually really good at what he does.
Sure.
So I trust him in his evaluation. But here's a stat that really kind of threw me for a loop: the only 2 quarterbacks with a higher PFF grade than Josh Allen over the past 2 seasons.
Who?
Aaron Rodgers.
Sure.
And Tom Brady.
Okay.
Like, that's it.
Yeah,
Josh Allen is that dude now.
Josh Allen is really good at football in part because he is a behemoth, right? Like Josh Allen is a big, stout, well-built dude who can move with a cannon. And for some reason, right, like after being completely inaccurate in college and for his first season in the NFL, he was just like, you know what? Accuracy engaged. And then all of a sudden it was gangbusters. Like it was cancel Christmas time at that point.
The one thing I always said about Josh Allen was if you could harness all of the physical gifts that he has as a player, that dude could turn into a monster. Because you're right, coming out of college and out of high school, that dude was super inaccurate. But they found a way, Brian Dable and that Buffalo Bill team, to be able to harness what he was as a player, and he has turned into an absolute monster. And now you're seeing all of that come to fruition in the National Football League. So I give Josh Allen a lot of credit for definitely proving me wrong, because I didn't think this would be capable of him, you know, in that way. But they have been able to unlock that when it comes to his play on the field. Tampa Bay comes in at number 2. The Chargers at 3. The defending Super Bowl champion Los Angeles Rams come in at number 4 as the top 4 teams roster-wise, according to Pro Football Focus. Number 5 is the Green Bay Packers. Number 6, how about the Cleveland Browns?
But we knew the Cleveland Browns were a talented roster. It's part of why there was a lot of consternation about Baker Mayfield, is that, hey, man, they got all this talent around there and you're not going nowhere. People starting to look at you, dog. Right? Like that was the thing when it came to Baker Mayfield. And I know that some people will talk about the injury and we don't have to get too deep into this, but there was an understanding. And of course there should be an understanding that they were really good. They were drafting number 1 or top 5 or top 10 for 13 decades, right? Like we understand if you have that many number 1, number 2, number 3 overall picks, like you're going to hit on a few of them. And that's how they've built this team, is that they were just so bad for a long stretch of team that they just loaded up. And to be fair, also, like the likes of Sashi Brown and the people that have been in charge over there have made good decisions for the most part. But they've built a really, really talented team. You know, quarterback was always just a question for them.
And now their best player is arguably one of the best defensive players in the NFL, and Myles Garrett.
He's scary.
You want to talk about a monster. Yeah, Myles Garrett is that. To round out the top 10, the Philadelphia Eagles come in at number 7, which is kind of puzzling when you start thinking about that team, but then you start running down some of the names that they have roster-wise. It's not bad.
No, it is not.
It's not bad.
And low-key, pretty good offensive line. The one question, again, quarterback. That's the one.
If Jalen Hurts can be that guy on that team, okay, now we're talking about.
All right, Kevin, you're stalling.
Well, I'm just saying.
You're stalling, Kevin.
What? I'm just saying.
Where are the Cowboys? That was the where are the Cowboys?
Well, you're not gonna like, because they didn't make the top 10.
Okay.
And they didn't make the top 15. Cowboys come in right smack dab in the middle. Of all 32 teams, your Dallas Cowboys come in at number 16. The biggest strength for the Dallas Cowboys, according to this particular piece of work, Micah Parsons came into the league as a rookie last year and made a legitimate case for not just the NFL's Defensive Rookie of the Year, but also the Defensive Player of the Year. His PFF, he was PFF's highest graded off-ball linebacker and one of the most effective pass rushers in the NFL when defensive coordinator Dan Quinn opted to use him as an edge rusher, RJ Choppy. The Randy Gregory loss of free agency is going to hurt Dallas up front, but few teams can send 2 pass rushers as talented as Micah Parsons. And yes, DeMarcus Lawrence after opposing quarterbacks. Parsons' ability to fill multiple roles as a high level, at a high level, depending on where he's needed most in a given situation, provides a lot of flexibility to the Cowboys on defense.
Not going to hear any complaints from me on that. Micah Parsons is absolutely the shining gem of this roster at this point in time.
He's going to be so fun to watch this year.
And it doesn't hurt that, like, the personality is fun too. Like he's big and bold with his, but he's also like really nice and like seems to just be like lovable. It all works out. What I found interesting was what ESPN asserted as the weakness for this team, because I don't think it stems from, or I don't think it lines up with a lot of conversation that has been had about this team. The weakness they lined up was the defensive line. particularly the interior of the defensive line.
Okay.
The writing is as follows. As good as Lawrence has been up front for the Cowboys over the past 5 years, the rest of the defensive line has some concerns. Dallas's defensive tackles combined for a 33.1 PFF run defense grade last season, which was good for 30th. If you remember, there were 32 teams.
There's only 32 of them.
And the only real addition to the group this offseason was John Ridgeway, who was a 5th-round pick. So the Cowboys are relying on younger players such as Neville Gallimore and Osa Odighizuwa to take a step forward in 2022. So yeah, that's where you're at. And Osa Odighizuwa played really well early in the season. So maybe you think we've seen him do it before. Maybe he just needs to be consistent with it. And then Neville Gallimore just need to be on the field to do it.
That says a lot about, to me, kind of, you know, the talent on this team, that you look at the roster and it's only the 16th best roster in the National Football League. They have a lot of talent in certain spots. Obviously with Micah Parsons, Trayvon Diggs. We mentioned, you know, obviously what they have there, some of the guys on defense. But that defense, as you mentioned, not great in the interior. They allowed 4.5 yards per carry last year. It's a team that you could run the football on and run the football very effectively on. And they're going to have to depend a lot on these dudes, whether it be Gallimore, Osa Odighizuwa, John Ridgeway, in some cases Tristan Hill. All of these guys in tandem are going to have to be much better up the middle to allow Micah Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence to get after the quarterback the way, you know, they're capable of. And more importantly for Sam Williams, Dante Fowler Jr., Dorrance Armstrong, whoever fills that right side of the edge there, they're going to have to be beneficiaries of a much better interior in 2022, because if not, they're going to have some real problems on the defensive line.
You're talking about the edges. Those dudes up the middle got to be good to stay out of the laps of the linebackers. That's really what it's got to be, because you need, when you talk about run stopping, making sure that you're not getting pushed off the line is the first battle, and then making sure that your linebackers are clean enough to be able to get to the gaps they need to get to and fill and make tackles. And that's what it's going to have to be. But it's interesting that all the way around, you look at it, and this team is not viewed there. It's viewed as like Gladys and the Pips a lot of times, where you got a few guys like your Micah Parsons, like your Tank Lawrence, and a lot of people still value Dak Prescott fairly highly, CeeDee Lamb, of course, Tyron Smith, Zach Martin. But you've got those folks, and then it's like people look at the rest of your roster and go, all right. Because what did you say that the grade rubric was? That, you know, 90 and above was what? Exceptional?
Elite.
80 to 90 is what?
Very good.
Very good. 70 to 80 is what?
Let's see. 80 to 70 to 79 is average.
All right. So like you've got a lot of, let's see, in that very good category, Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, Jalen Tolbert based off of like college grades. So I don't know how much you want to use that. Zach Martin, of course, Tyron Smith. I'll stick away from the rookies and guys who haven't played that much, but those, and then DeMarcus Lawrence are your very good. Micah Parsons at 89.7. So if you want to lump him in there, you can as well. But then like in that average, Dalton Schultz, and that might be a Jaron Kearse and Malik Hooker. And then after that, everybody is below a 70. You know, like that's what you're looking at.
That's what I'm saying. Like the talent level, like in certain spots is really good. You look at the rest, it's like, which says a lot, because I still think this team is good enough to win the NFC East. Despite all of that, I think they're still good enough to win the NFC East.
seems to be a battle of good quarterback, all right roster, or good roster, quarterback. And which one of those will come out being the better. And I think that's what will decide the NFC East.
Well, if it's anything that means, when it comes to quarterback, the Cowboys got the best one of those in the division. Those were the Cowboys rank as far as the best teams roster-wise.
You know who's 17? The Washington Commanders.